So hi everyone. Just a reminder for the newcomers that you cannot exit the building without a supercharge card. So if you want to leave, find some supercharger. I don't know how to recognize them. I am one of them. That's what I know for sure. But sorry.
Or is this a hiring announcement?
Yeah, this is a hiring announcement. You are all hired for free. Yeah. So. Thanks, Christian, for your presentation. It was really awesome. And hi, I'm Donny. I work at Supercharge as a React expert. And that means that I'm responsible for maintaining our React stack at the company. And I also try to unlock our developers on their daily work. And also to spread knowledge mostly about React. I started my career more than 10 years ago. And back then, I was working with PHP and Backbone.js and jQuery and all this fancy stuff that Christian already talked about. It was different compared to today. And in 2014, like 1 year after the initial open source of React, I found an article about it. And I was really fascinated that it gives me the same interactivity that I can do with jQuery and Backbone, but it also supports server-side rendering out of the box. That was part of React since the very beginning, and I think that's really cool. So why are we here today? What to expect from this talk? I would like to talk about this new tool or concept. I don't know how to call it. It's React Server Components. I like it because it's not that new. The first video or article was released about 3 years ago about it. And so still, I just want to ask a couple of questions from you. Please raise your hand if you have ever worked with React. Yeah, almost all of you. That's really good. I think this presentation will be harder to understand without React experience, but I will do my best. Please raise your hand if you work with React on a daily basis. Awesome. And please raise your hand if you have ever tried server components. Like half of you. OK, really good. And please raise your hand. This is the last question, I promise. If you work with server components on a daily basis. Please, everyone, look around you. Just look at the very middle. There is one single person. And I'm really happy because that's exactly what I expected. So what does it mean? Is it something bad? Or is it not ready yet? Or is it just too complicated to understand? And I think it's maybe the latter, like it's too complicated. If you don't know where to look or what to learn. So during my career, so it's more than 10 years now, I saw the front-end ecosystem going through a lot of changes. So there were bundlers coming in, like Browserify in the first place, and then Rollup and Webpack and whatever else, and also TypeScript and new frameworks, AngularJS, Angular, React, Vue, Quick, and even JavaScript got a really good upgrade. It still gets upgraded every year. We were introduced to functional programming. We got a lot of new features related to that. And why I'm talking about this? I think the web got really complicated in the last more than 10 years. We had to learn a lot. And it's hard to navigate. And I think it's especially hard to navigate for new developers, junior and medium-level developers. And maybe it's too much to learn a new thing. I don't think so. So let's see how can server components change the way we create websites. I would like to give you some introduction, what it's capable of after 3 years of its release. Yeah. So, but first, before going to server components, let's have a look on our toolset without server components, but only the part that is necessary to understand this new tool. So we have components, right? In React and many other frameworks, components that are functions nowadays, and in React, I will focus on React. And these functions return JSX, that HTML-like thingy, most of you familiar with. And you can make these components interactive by using hooks, and you can access any browser API from them. And these components can run both on the server and on the client. And when you run them at both places, that's called server-side rendering. And I just want to give you a little demonstration of single-page applications, which Chris already talked about a little bit, and server-side rendered applications. So I have here a small demo. It's just a project created with Vite. I will just call npm start. So this project is already built, and this is the built version of the application. And if I open up localhost 8080, I will see that it renders some application. But let's see the initial markup that was returned from the server. As you can see, that what we have here is an empty div with an ID of root. So something happened here. And what happened here is that we have a script tag here that loads a JavaScript file. That JavaScript file contains React, our dependencies, and also our own components. And once this JavaScript is loaded and executed, then you have your React application here. But what does that mean if I turn on network throttling? Network throttling is a way to emulate like slow responses. Like, just imagine when you're on a train in an area where the coverage is not that good as here in the office. So if I click slow 3G and I hit refresh, it loads for a lot of time. And we see this white page. So this is what initially came from the server. And then after a couple of seconds, the bundle was downloaded, and we got our application, and it's interactive, really good. So what is the problem with this? Is that we have crawlers like Google and Facebook that tries to read out web pages and get certain information out of it. For example, when you share an article on Facebook, it tries to read metadata related to your blog post's title and other things. So with a single page application, you don't get that from Facebook because Facebook doesn't wait for interactive content. Google does. I think they had no other choice to do this, but Facebook don't do this. So if you want to be compatible with Facebook's crawler, you have to put your meta text here in the initial response. That's a problem. And also, if you're on a slow connection, you will see this white page. You can put a spinner there, but that's still not the real content. And if you have JavaScript disabled, I don't know who does that, but if you disable JavaScript, then all you have is a white page. Yeah. So let's jump to our second demo, which where I'm using Next.js. It's a popular so-called meta framework for React. Again, this is the build version. So if I open up localhost 3000, hopefully I will see something. Yeah, I want to turn on throttling for now. Yeah. So if I open up the source, that it will be really hard to understand because Next just puts the entire content in one line. Maybe we save some bytes by skipping new line characters. I don't know, but it's really hard to understand. But if I search for find in-depth information, for example, find in-depth information, then it's there. So crawlers are happy. Users with slower connections are a little bit more happier because they don't have to wait for the bundle to see the content. But there is one important thing here. I just make it larger because something covers up the increase button if it's on mobile view. I don't know what. So this is interactive now. But if I do network throttling again, I will just go with 3G. I clicked multiple times before you see the counter incrementing. And that was the time between the initial response and React coming alive in the browser. So what happens here? You get static HTML from the server, instantly visible to the user. You download the bundle. I mean, not you, but the browser downloads the bundle. It interprets it, executes it, and then the very same components that you have on the server side run on the client. So you use these components on the server, on the client. It's pretty important for server components. That's why I highlight. And also, I put a console log in my home component, hello chargedUP, and at the bottom you can see the logs from the server. It's hello chargedUP. So whenever I just clear up this, and whenever I hit, and you can see the console log from the client, and you can see so my component runs on the server and then on the client. Really good. So even if I have some static content, like most of this page, apart from the button, I still have to run these components on the client too. That is server-side rendering. Okay, back to the presentation. Hopefully it's going to be a lot smoother. Stop mirroring. Yay. Cool. Yeah, I skipped one slide. So why do we need anything new? It's working, right? That's how we develop React for many years. And I maybe be unpopular after the first sentence, but I think SSR and that's server-side rendering and static side rendering and incremental rendering and all this stuff is there in the ecosystem to get around the problems we created by introducing single-page applications. Let me know after the talk if you agree with this. So back when I was working with PHP, it was really easy. I created some template there. It's in the browser, instantly there, instantly visible. User can use it really good. I didn't have big bundles. I mean, I used jQuery, but that wasn't that big. And I also managed to make part of my application interactive. Not the entire thing had to be interactive. And I think that we also introduced a big problem called data fetching on the client. I think it's one of the hardest things to do. You have to find a library like TenStack Query or just use plain fetch from the browser API. You have to take care about loading states and error states and pooling and refetching and whatever else, and you put all this content to the client side. And I mentioned bundle size. It's increasing year by year, and we got a tool called code splitting, so we can do it in a way that we only deliver the code that's necessary for that single page. But it's still a challenge to do this. And what if we would have a better tool to handle all these things? And that's where I will talk about our today's topic, server components. Because we got a new tool, and we get new type of components. We still have the old one, that's important, that exclusively run on the server, which means that it's not there on the client. You will see. I will do a quick demo. Not quick, but demo. And they add close to 0 to the bundle size. Pretty good. And we also get components that can be asynchronous. I'm not sure that all of you know that. Like the regular React components cannot be async, so you cannot just do async function my awesome component. React will just throw an error somewhere. And we also got streaming rendering, which I will just demo you. So, demo 3. And I again will split my screen. This is again a Next.js application. That is the easiest way now to work with server components, and maybe the only way.
Make the font size a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Is it good there? Yeah, I mean, I can still, but wait until I open some code. Get post. Is it good or still? Everyone good? Okay. I still have to open up a browser. I can't escape. Good. I think it's going to be localhost 3000 again. Yes. And I think I have to stop the process from my previous demo. Yes. So this is going to be development version of Next. And it's not sleeping. I just managed to unplug my cable. It reconnects way faster than yours, Chris. How is that? So what we're going to build is a really, really simple blog post page. Nothing fancy. I have some function here that's async, called getPost. It returns a mock post after 250 milliseconds, so just a little bit of delay. And it has a title, and it has sections. It's like you get some structured data from a CMS. Now, I have different type of sections. Each has some learning for you about server components. So, we refresh. I think I still have network throttling, right? Oh no? Fast3G. I don't want that now. I want to have console. So it's empty. It's empty because what I have is an empty h1 tag and an empty div. So this is a component, of course. You can see JSX, that HTML-like thingy. So I have to fetch my post. It's async, so I have to wait for it. Yeah, so I cannot do it. But if I mark it as an async function, it will do it. So this component now it was already a server component, but we are pretty sure it's a server component because it's async. And I will just uncomment this title here, and hopefully we will see lorem ipsum. Really good. Let me just quickly put a console log here. Hey, I am post. What I'm doing here, yeah. So I see, hey, I am post, or I post, whatever, in the server's log, but nothing on the client. So this component is only there on the server. Really good. And what happens here is that only the markup, the HTML markup generated by the component, gets to the client. And you had to do nothing, like it's not a different type of function or anything. It's just like this. So I mentioned sections. Let me demonstrate my first section. And don't hate me for this switch case. I also don't like it. But if I have a text section, I want to render my text component, which expects me to pass a content prop and section.content. I also have to return it. It's really hard to develop on a small screen line. Yeah. So I just rendered my second component. Let's see what it does. So this is not async. And still, if I put a console log here, hi from text. One thing I have to do is to put, I don't know. Don't do this in your real applications, but I just want to get rid of warnings. I forgot to put an ID in the sections array, so I will just use the index as the key, which is totally an anti-pattern. So I got a log from post and text, but still nothing on the client. So this is still a server component, even if it's not async. And it also does some modification on the content to make that post look like more my t-shirt. I mean, that was the plan. And that's all. Let's see our second type of. And what I wanted to highlight here, that this util function also server only, so not shipped to the client. Let's see the second section. It's called image. I also have component prepare, key index, and it expects me to send an SRC prop section that URL. And I have to scroll down. It's a beautiful mountain. So if I turn on network throttling, again, to show you something that. So when you want to display an image, you get the initial response from the server. Browser sees that, hey, it's an image there. It starts to load the image. But what to display there between that time? So it can be either an empty place, or if you omit width and height property on the image, it will be nothing, and when the image loads, it will just push down all your content below it. Yeah. But I did some, I think, fancy thing that I have some low resolution placeholder there for the image. It works in a way that I have a background image with a base 64 encoded SVG, I guess, or PNG, I'm not sure. But it's pretty small, couple of bytes. So user has a better experience. And you can do this on the server because the library I'm using is this one. I won't try to pronounce it. Please play IC whether, I don't know. And it uses Sharp under the hood, which is a really, really, really heavy and big image processing library for Node.js. And in the components itself, what I do, that I will just use node fetch to, not in the component, but in the util function, I just use fetch. It is a similar API that you has in the browser, but it's the server version. I fetch the image from the URL, and I call this library to generate this base 64 string for me, and I return it. And in the component, I call util function, and we just set the background image here. So you can do things like this with server components. Pretty heavy stuff stays on the server. So third section, case gallery. Return yeah, I got some really strange thing going on, but I'm expecting to see an error. Let me just disable throttling again. I don't know what's going on. OK. So I get an error that you are importing a component that needs useState. It only works in client, but none of its parents are marked with useClient, so they are server components by default. So that's why async and non-async functions also count as server components until you use useClient, apparently. So let me open up my gallery component, and I can put this useClient directive that it's used by Next or Webpack or I don't know exactly what. That, hey, Next, hey, React, this is a client-side component. If I put console log here, yes, that's what I wanted, thanks. Gallery. Cool. So I see gallery here. I expected to see gallery there on the server, so that's not that good. Ah, yeah, it's there. So even this is a client component now, it still runs on the server because Next still does server-side rendering for these components. So why this needs to be a client component? Because it has interactivity. You can reduce the images, and I pulled in a Lightbox library to display my images in a bigger size. You can scroll through them. You already know these solutions. And I have to use useState to tell this library which image was opened. And yeah, I have to handle events here. And this only can be done in client-side components, the components that we know already. And you have to use this directive to make it client-side. OK, so what I did here is that I have just a plain image component. But I really want to use my previous image component that generates this low resolution placeholder because I think it's cool. So what if I replace, yeah, I use both the Hungarian and the English layout for the with my MacBook, and sometimes I make them. So is it already there? I don't know what's going on. And I can just do something like this. I forgot to fix this, so let's just call it image type. And what is going on there? I had two imports with the same name. That was the problem. So if I do this now, I get this module parse failed unexpected character question mark, something like, I don't know what. And it's hard to understand, but it is because I tried to use a server component inside the client component. You can do that. So once you enter the client word, you are in the client word. I will show you some alternatives, but it's a challenge to get around this problem. So what I can do instead is that I prepared another component called gallery wrapper. Gallery wrapper, and that expects the same prop I'm passing to gallery. And what it does, it just generates these low resolution images for all of my images and render to gallery component. And note that this is server-side component, so I just grab it. And what I have to do here is to extend, why is that? With, I don't remember the name of the prop, low resolution URL, and let it be string, and I can use that here, resolution URL, and pass it to, I won't use image. That still cannot be done, but I can advance my image component to get it working. And I can do style. Jesus. Maybe it would be easier to code here. URL and low resolution URL, and for a very short period of time you could see the low resolution images. I don't want to do throttling. So what happens if you still want server-side components inside client components? Actually, you can do that. I have a third type of block here, and that's called spoiler. Yes. And okay. And what is your problem? Okay, it doesn't matter for now. So I have a spoiler that is like this. You can click the button and it will show the secret content. And it's also an interactive component, so it's a client component. And once you click the button, it toggles a state and reveals your content. What I want to do here is to render children here and read out the children prop from here. And yeah, it works, but nothing special yet. What if I put my text component here that I already used above and pass the spoiler content to that section.content. And it works. And I won't demo it, but that text component still runs only on the server side. So you cannot use server components inside client components, but you can pass them as a prop. And it's a pretty good trick to get around some problems. So, and one other thing quickly is I also have a comment section. Where is it? This comment section just use get comments. It has a bigger delay. It has a list of comments, like one comment. That's not really a list, but it's an array, I promise. And if I hit refresh, it loads for a couple of seconds. So the initial 250 millisecond and the 1.5 second delay together. And Chris already mentioned suspense, and suspense is also good for telling React on the server side that, hey, this part of the document is not that important. So if I hit this and click refresh, I get the post really fast, and after 2.5 seconds, I get the comments. And there is no request to the server to get these comments. It's using HTTP 2's streaming feature. It uses the same HTTP connection to send down the comments. I think it's pretty cool. And you can even define a loading state here, like loading comments. And if I hit refresh, I will see loading comments, and I will see comments after 2.5 seconds. Yes, so that was my demo. And I will try to speed up my presentation because I think I'm already late. Sorry for that. Displays, again, stop mirroring. Bring back my presentation. This is not the one I want. This is the one. I want full screen. So that were server components. There are additional features that would take up too much time to present. Here, to be presented here, it's called server actions. It's a really good thing that you can basically bind functions defined in a server context to React event handlers. And it's really amazing. So you say on click, and it will run an HTTP request automatically to that path, and it's fascinating. And you can submit forms with this. Okay, so server components has their limitations, as we saw. You cannot put interactive content. You also can't use context with server components, which can be really painful because if you work with React, usually if you open up your app component, then you find your application wrapped with at least 10 contexts for authentication, for analytics, for many more things. And you can do that with server components because context is client only. Client components can't have server components inside them, apart from this trick that I showed you. And it's not 100% true, but most of the time you will need a server running somewhere to have server components. With Next, you can do static rendering, even with server components, but most of the time you will need a server. And if I talked about Next, is that this is the only easy way to use server components today. So you can go deep, and there is a Webpack server components package on npm that doesn't have any documentation. If you want to implement it, have fun. How are we not using server components in Supercharge? So this summer we had 2 React projects starting, and we did the research if we can utilize it. And so context and problems with internationalization, and we tried to deploy most of our React apps with static hosting. That was also really hard with servers being around. So we decided not yet. And we also started to focus on React development at Supercharge 1.5 years ago, which means that we are still in the learning, and we still have to learn a lot of things as a team. And this makes it a lot more complicated. And this is the reason that I didn't raise my hand when I asked if I use server components on a daily basis. And server components give you good opportunities to solve problems in a different way, but that means more flexibility. But if you have flexibility, that's more decisions, more complexity. And that's not an easy thing to decide on what to use. So we are waiting for the right project and also the ecosystem to mature. And so that was my presentation. I'm really curious what's your reaction on it. And share your opinion anywhere, LinkedIn, here, whatever. And I collected some learning materials around server components. I wanted to put a QR code here for it to be easier, but I just had a to-do command before the presentation, and I removed the to-do command. So a couple of conference talks and articles about server components. They're pretty useful. Have fun. That was it.